While she's taking her seat, we now resume the Senate and Regional Affairs and Transport Legislation Committee. Now, Mr Fullerton, let me get straight to the point. Have you ever heard of the Millmerran Rail Group?
Yes, I have.
Okay. What do you know about them?
Well, they're the group represented by some of the landowners in that area.
Correct. So there are apparently 20-odd landowners who are directly affected on the floodplain, and then there's upstream and downstream landowners who are not directly affected on the floodplain that have an interest. Okay? This is the group that has... Are you aware that they have been leading the consultation within the community from a community consultation point of view?
Well, there are consultative committees set up, but I know that they're...
No, not your consulting committees. I'm talking about representing.
I'm aware of that, and I have met with a number of them on a number of occasions.
I rang the chair of that. They meet twice a week. And I asked him, is he or his members, have we closed the gap from where they were unhappy? He told me that they're probably twice as unhappy now than they were when this route was first put forward. So firstly, would you agree that that's completely inconsistent with your view of the planet about those who are affected by this work on the floodplains?
Yes, I would. I have spoken to the CEO of Inland Rail during the break, Richard Wankmuller.
Yes.
And put that question to him. His advice, he meets with them regularly, but his advice is that there are a number of people that feel a lot more comfortable as we provide a lot of the details around the engineering solutions and the hydrology assessment around the 1 in 100 year floods and some of the solutions we're proposing, but he does admit there are still people remain concerned about the railway operating across that.
Well, they met Mr Wankmuller in November, and according to the instructions I had over the break, they said they made it they applied high praise to Mr Wankmuller. He's a Canadian, apparently.
Yep. American.
Sorry?
American,
okay. So they thought he was Canadian. But they say that they clearly left him with the impression that they were very, very unhappy. So his takeout was that they were not. Is that right? Or
no, his takeout that as we provide more of the details around the engineering and the hydrology, that a number of people are getting more comfortable as they start to see the details. But he also said that there's still a number of them are still remain against the alignment through that area and remain hostile towards it.
All right, so could you take on notice who the people are that are getting progressively happier that are affected by this? Because that is completely inconsistent with the instructions that I've just been given by the Millmerran Group.
Okay, I will.
The 20 farmers who meet, or a body of them, 9 of them meet twice a week. All right,
Senator, thank you.
So now, has the minister spoken to you in the last little bit about any concerns about how unhappy the landowners are up there?
Yes, the minister spoke to me and Richard Wankmuller and the chair of ARTC Warren Trust last Monday. Right,
and that was a result of his visit up there and inspections of a number of the sites that have been affected, they say, by this. What they see as design flaws, correct?
Yes, Senator.
All right. Now, did the minister bring to your attention, I'm sure he did, that the 8 serious issues articulated where evidence that these landowners say they have is in complete conflict with your design to date? 8 separate issues. And let me give you an example of the issues where they've produced photographs or videos that show you that this isn't a 1/100 test, that in the years of our Lord 2010, 2011, 2013 and 1996, that they've got video evidence and they've got photographic evidence that shows that some of your modelling is up to 20 centimetres out in the depth of the water. Was that brought to your attention?
No, not those precise details. The advice I've got around the hydrology is that with the modelling that we've done and the consultation with those landowners, that there is some consistency in the data.
Well, Do you know Mr. Sharmil Marker?
No, I have not met him, no.
Do you know? That was my question.
No, I do know the name, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
In what context do you know the name?
He's involved in hydrology.
That's right.
Yeah. Expert, yes, that's right.
Yeah. But that's it? You don't know anything else about him?
Well, no, I haven't been dealing with him directly. The Inland Rail team have been dealing with him.
Okay, well, that was the full answer, Mr. Fullerton. So he's a hydrologist with whom your team have been dealing with.
That's right.
Representing the farmers.
Yes.
So what would you say if I told you that Mr. Marker is very concerned about the modelling that you've produced to date?
Well, I would like to understand that a bit more detail, and I'll talk to my team around the details.
Sure.
But the advice I've had was that there's been alignment around the assessment around the flood, the extent of flooding under these historical events.
Sure. Are you aware that some landowners, that the negotiations with your people, where they've indicated that we'll put a levee bank around your house?
Well, we're aware that there are 33 properties that are impacted by this. There's 11 properties that will suffer some increased level of flooding. They still flood under the current arrangements without the railway. I'm aware of 10 properties or 11 properties that will have an increased level of flooding, and we're working through them at the moment on how that would be mitigated.
Both on frequency and volume, I'm told.
Frequency, well, height.
No. The frequency of the flooding as well as the volume of the flooding.
Yes.
Okay, so we're not just saying, listen, you swamp rats are used to this. They'll have to get more used to more frequency of higher water levels.
Well, Senator, we're still working through them. We haven't completed the reference design and the final design of that. We did preliminary designs before Christmas, so we continue to work with those landowners about the design and the hydrology to make sure that we can come to a point of agreement.
And is Mr. Sharmil Marker now recognised by your people as representing their interests in the discussions around the hydrology?
Well, we're working with Mr. Sharma, and we've got our own hydrology design engineers involved.
So why would you ask him to sign a confidentiality agreement about his dealings with you?
I'm not sure, Senator. I need to take that on notice.
Well, I'll tell you what we're going to do at the end of this. We'll hang on to you here while you go out and resolve that issue, right? So I just can't... Can you think about why someone representing effective landowners who's an expert in the field of hydrology, and this is about water and water levels, who in dealing with your people would have to sign a confidentiality agreement, so he couldn't go back, in this case Mr. Marker, and advise his client base, if you like, affected farmers on the Downs, on the Condamine Plains, as to what the impacts were. That would be counterproductive, would it not, to a transparent process, Mr. Fullerton?
Senator, let me understand the context that's been requested.
Let's do that. So, in view of your statement before the break, on the advice I have, it's completely inconsistent with every landowner that is affected by the Condamine Plains crossing. Certainly 29 of them who make up the core committee and farmers affected by it. We're not talking about upstream or downstream now, a general community. But you're going to solve that, because of those 29, you're going to give me a list of the happy ones, or the ones who are satisfied, or more satisfied, however you want to describe it. But I think you should. I think when you give me their name, you should, on notice, you should ask whoever's providing you with the names that they give us a little précis under it. Fred and Betty are happy because we're going to put a levee bank around the house, and where they used to get 2 inches of water through there, they're going to get none now. Also, are you aware that landowners have indicated that whilst the levee banks that have been negotiated with them, if you like, or been presented to them, will cover their house, it doesn't cover outbuildings and sheds, because the basis was it used to flood before? Are you aware of that?
I don't know the precise details around how they intend to mitigate it, Senator.
But would you agree that if it's going to flood more frequently to a higher level, there is an impact on these landowners, and that should be taken into account?
Yes, I would imagine so, Senator.
So we'll imagine that won't be outside any ugly levee bank that goes around someone's property. Look, I've got to tell you, Mr Fullerton, this is not going away for these people. I spent most of my lunch break with the chair of the committee, and he was most exercised with respect to these issues, representing the people who are in their group. They're not satisfied with anything that's happening. They believe they're still in the dark. I'm surprised after the confrontation, and it may be that the Minister's office is still putting this together to give to you, but they've provided the Minister's office with all the evidence. You really can't tell us whether that's in your system or not at the moment, can you?
Not the precise details you're talking about.
No, but they may be in your system. You just might not be aware of it.
That could be the
I know
case.
it's a big, long railway line here. You've got a lot
It could be the
happening.
case, Senator, yeah.
Yeah. So could you take that on notice that the evidence, the photographs, all the range of briefs that have been given to the ministers, so that was both Minister Littleproud and Minister McCormack, are in the possession of your people and are being actively worked through.
I will, Senator.
All right? Just bear with me. We've still got time, but let me... So another thing that I want to feed into the system, and I've said to you, 2010, 11, 13 and 1976, I should have started with 76, were events that weren't 1 in 100 events, but are underpinning the hydrology concerns of Mr Marker. Your evidence earlier was you're working to a 1 in 100.
Well, we're working in accordance with the planning requirements, but we also take into account future impacts on climate change and all those things you take into account when you're designing a
But
railway
that's not
through
what I'm
that land.
saying. That's what I'm saying. I hear that. I know about the planning requirements of 1 in 100. But we've got residents here telling me, and they've told you, and they've told your people, and they've told the ministers, that it is not a 1 in 100 that you need to be concerned about, because 76, 10, 11 and 13 were at levels that were higher than your modelling that you've based, it would seem, on a 1 in 100.
But Senator, I think my understanding from my team is that that data has been shared with the Inland Rail Project Office around all those historical events, because we've done also the modelling,
Sure.
and my understanding is that there is alignment between what we've assumed in terms of the flood events and some of those historical incidents that occurred.
Well, does it surprise you to know that they disagree with that statement?
Yeah.
Right? That their disagreement is that they've got on 8 features, that they've got physical evidence that has been shared with your people and is part of the work being done by Mr Marker that contradicts your modelling that you're laying out in front of these people. You're saying, look, we've done a 1 in 100, or whatever. I don't know that you've said that. Let me withdraw that. I don't know what you've said. We've done modelling. The water's only going to come up to your bottom step, right? Based on, sorry, it's only going to come up to your 3rd step because our modelling shows that on previous events it only got to your bottom step. And they went, no, hold the phone. Here's the photos. Here's the video that shows you'd got up to our 3rd step, which means your modelling is based on if you like, a failed proposition, failed reference point. I mean, this is, Mr Fullerton, I haven't kept abreast of this issue these are my constituency in Queensland, they're to the south of me, they were quite exercised, they come to me. I'd heard you at estimates to talk about these engagements, and I thought surely we're going to make some progress. I'm going to report to you that we have not, right? And I'm also going to report to you that I'm going to devote the largest part of the balance of my time in this parliament to monitoring this, and I want you to consider getting whoever to come with me down there, and we're going to sit together in a big mob. We'll smoke a big pipe, and we'll have a look at your modelling, and we'll have a look at their evidence, so that I can be guided by what the truth of the matter is, right?
We're more than happy to do that, Senator.
Good work, and my office will be in touch with you as early as tomorrow.
Thank you.
Senator Patrick.
Excuse me, Chair. I should follow up on Senator Stell's questions. Do you want me to do that later or now?
Well,
I can help you, Chair. I'm happy to sit back and wait.
yeah, I did give Senator Patrick an indication, and
problem,
we were
Chair.
going to interpose you, so,
Just wanted to check, that's all.
yeah.
I've just got a brief set of questions. I seem to recall evidence taken by this committee before suggested that there's some sort of mandate for the use of Australian steel and rail track used by ARTC. Is that correct?
Sorry,
Yeah, sorry.
so the specific question is, Senator?
My understanding is that there is some mandate from government or policy from government that Australian steel is used in rail track used by ARTC.
No, there's no mandate to use Australian steel. We buy our steel historically, and we are buying steel for inland rail from Liberty Steel in Whyalla. And we're just, at this stage, delivering about 17,000 tonnes for the Parks to Narromine section. We've just bought about 70,000 tonne of steel for Adelaide to Tarcoola re-railing. So historically, we've always bought from Liberty One Steel, but we always ensure that we get value for money whenever we acquire steel, but there is no mandate to buy Australian steel.
Look, thank you for that, and of course, value for money should include things like economic benefit in accordance with the procurement rules as well. But I just wanted to then go to another government policy that I know is in development, whereby companies that are contracted, large companies that are contracted by the Australian government, must pass on or must have payment terms of it's either 20 or 30 days. It's a policy in development. Are you aware of that policy?
No, not in detail.
Okay. So that would then... I know it is in its infancy, and I commend the government for doing that, obviously, right down through the supply chain. Perhaps if you could go on notice then, have a look at what early indications you may have had from I'm guessing it's finance or other departments in relation to that policy, and whether or not there have been any checks in your current, or whether there are any terms in your current contracts with GFG Liberty in relation to payment terms for sub-suppliers and indeed future intentions.
Yeah, payment terms would vary. I mean, in our case, mostly beyond 30 days. 30-day terms.
That's right. That's to the prime.
Right.
But the government ruling, my understanding, the government policy will be that large companies that seek contracts from government will have to demonstrate that their supply chain gets payment terms of a similar standard.
Okay.
So if you could just have a look and just
will.
see where the status of the corporation is.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Senator Steele.
Oh, good. Okay. Thanks, Chair. Right. So, Dr. Kennedy, you have information for us?
I do, Senator. I'll just say at the outset, and then work my way through it, that we believe we've discovered an error in the brief that you referred to. There are maps in the brief that you referred to at attachment B, a map at attachment C, where the Minister is advised to write to the Honourable Melinda Pavey, and advice at attachment B, and further information at attachment D. All of the description of the ART's preferred alignments and all of the maps listed in those parts are correct, we understand, and consistent with the map that was provided sometime later by the ARTC to the Farmers Federation, consistent with the refinement of the alignment that Minister Chester was asked to sign off on.
So, sorry, Mr. Chester signed off on the map that was supplied to the Farmers Federation?
He signed off on the maps.
Yeah.
He signed off on the alignment that was referred to in the brief that's in the areas I just pointed out.
Sorry, the first map, yeah.
And they are consistent with the map that the ART subsequently provided. The map that is incorrect, we think, and we're continuing to look at this, but we're pretty sure, is the map at attachment A, where the department, not the ARTC, has made an error and attached the wrong map. As I said, the map in the ARTC advice, the map and all the description at attachment B and elsewhere are consistent. So in the brief itself, there is an inconsistency between the map at attachment A and the maps elsewhere. The department, we're going to have to investigate this fully, of course. The department, not the ARTC, constructed the map at or picked up the map at attachment A. We're not quite sure yet where it was drawn from. So, and that is what's leading to the confusion that you have correctly identified, particularly in the corridor. I'll straight away apologise to the committee and yourself for this error, and I acknowledge it's most unfortunate, not good enough. I will go and investigate the error subsequently, but but I can give you assurance to the best of our knowledge at this point that the maps that the Minister signed off on, the maps, all the maps referred to in the correspondence between the Chair and all the Minister's own correspondence to the New South Wales Minister, and then subsequently the map that was distributed by the ARTC to the National Farmers Federation are all correct and consistent with each other.
Okay.
It is the department in its own briefing at attachment A that has made an error that's led to this subsequent confusion.
Very good.
Once again, apologise for that, Senator.
Well, thank you, Dr Kennedy. That clearly sorts that out then. So, all right. But okay, so I'll move on, and this won't take long, Chair. And thank you for that. That's good. Now, we've still, and I think I'm still correct in saying that the government steadfastly refuses to budge on the route selection. I think that's where we're at the moment, after the concerns of the landholders. And I believe my interpretation that the government's hell-bent on delivering the option we've spoken about. I've even got what option number it is now, Mr Fullerton, but you
109.
know... Sorry?
Was it 109 you were...
109, yeah, 109. So, can we be sure then on that then, that what we've just found out, that map between Burraway and Kirban, can we say that it's not been replicated elsewhere? Are we confident? You might want to take that on notice.
Certainly.
Dr Kennedy, unless you do have some information. And the beauty of Australia is if you own up to making a mistake, no one gets their hands cut off. It's great. No, I'm applauding you.
Okay, thank you, Senator.
No, I'm not having a crack. I'm actually... You see, I try to be nice and I still get that look.
People are suspicious of it.
I'm suspicious of me. So, anyway, we're confident that's not happened somewhere else? You want to take that on notice?
We'll have,
Yeah,
we will
sure.
we will check other briefs, but we have checked all the maps in front of us and they are right.
Okay, so coming back, Dr Kennedy and team, with the concerns of the landowners, I suppose I'd have to put it to you, Minister, if I may. Do you intend to take any action to hear the concerns of the growers out there, of the landowners, and probably, and these are your people, they're not people that line up the vote for Glenn Sterling Fremantle, I can tell you, but neither here nor there, and actually taking the concern, you know, where the railway line's going to run through their properties because of the pressure that's being put on from the transport operators who want to make it 24 hours and not 24 hours, 2 minutes, and I'm just using those times. And Minister, I know that you may want to consult with your colleagues, but I want to put that to you.
Well, thank you, Senator Sterle. And the issues you raise, obviously, in our purvey, we all take an interest. The Minister for Infrastructure met with concerned landholders in November last year, again with Queensland landholders last week. So it is a situation that he's deeply engaged with and is on the ground having those conversations.
Okay, and I'm certainly not going to put words in your mouth. Thank you, Minister, but it's a moving feast, I could say, in terms of consulting.
Yep.
I'll take the nod, Minister. That's great. Thank you. Look, I can't dare put hypotheticals or ask questions.
You can, but I'll rule.
Okay, great, because I just let you get away with murder. I suppose I'll say to you, Dr Kennedy or Mr Fullerton, or even you, Minister, after what we've heard today, do you think, and taking everything in mind, would you agree that we do need an open and transparent inquiry into the inland rail? Just so it's all above board and everyone not only gets their say, but we take into consideration. Only leading down from, we've heard, unfortunately, Mr Fullerton, I'm not blaming you, but you've had different feedback from people on the ground and where we've received different feedback. So I suppose the question's to you, Minister, I'd say. Minister,
Yeah, I'd
okay.
say so. Thanks, Senator Sterle. Look, I think sitting here this morning, hearing the conflicting evidence around consultation with landowners, etc., we're committed to delivering the inland rail, and ministers current and previous have committed to its trajectory. I think it needs to be done in a way, obviously, that is respectful of landowners, and I know that the minister responsible is taking a very close, keeping a very close eye over the rollout of the project going forward.
Okay, Minister, I'll put one last question, and this is it, Chair, that I would request if the Minister could consider to instruct the ARTC to act within the boundaries of the consent originally granted and call upon them to revisit the option of, and I'll remember which option is, option 109, which was the original instruction to do.
I'll pass that comment on to the responsible minister.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Chair.